the 2017 general election, the presidential election, the first time round being annulled, forcing a repeat election. We get to take stock of just some of the key events around that time. And of course, in the past 1 year, and tonight I'm speaking to the CEO of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that's Ezra Chiloba. Thank you for making time for us. And let's begin with 1 year on for you. It was quite the election, the first in Africa for the presidential election to be annulled. A lot of intrigues around even the political scene, and internally at IEBC, the turmoil we witnessed. Looking back, how do you describe the 2017 general election plus the repeat presidential poll?
Well, I would say that it was eventful. If you look at where we started and getting to up to October, a lot of issues emerged. But by and large, I always say that as much as we had the nullification of the presidential election for the August 8th, we ran a good election, a good general election. If you consider that the planning that went into it, deploying a new system, registering voters, the tune of 19.6 million, and all of them biometric, being able to register 14,500 candidates to participate in the August 8th election, and also being able to accommodate the dynamic changes, especially in the political and legal context, to just ensure that the election happened. I think that was quite eventful for us.
So what would you do differently? What would you change? Put in a similar position today?
I've always reflected on that issue because, as I said, people at the commission, no one woke up in the morning and said, today we're going to sabotage the election. Everyone put in their best to ensure that we have good elections. So my own reflection, my own reflection.
Maybe the people who woke up with ulterior motives.
I'm the team leader, and I know what went on. I was the team leader, especially for the secretariat, and I know what went on. I think you have committed and dedicated staff in election management in Kenya, and we must always appreciate what they go through. But if you ask me, I will say that perhaps we'll communicate better, be able to carry along all the stakeholders. I think because of the many events or many activities and the tensions that were there at the time, we seem to have lost some of our stakeholders. That on the operational side, we were really doing very well. But on the political side, in terms of ensuring that everyone was reading from the same script, that perhaps we did not do very well. And had we explained ourselves much more in a better way, perhaps not have gotten ourselves in the situation that we got ourselves in.
So let's go to the presidential election petition. And we saw submissions from both sides. And one of the very controversial issues and big concerns was around the servers and the opening of the same. And the explanation that was given by counsel for the commission was about time differences, was about long processes. In terms of how IEBC and what they represented, how IEBC was represented in court, would you say things should have been done differently? Would you do it differently now, looking at what the country was able to witness in those days? We saw the hearings that led to analysis.
Well, I wouldn't want to say, I want to critique maybe the representation of IEBC in court or what. I think it goes back to the issue I alluded to, communication and creating a common understanding across stakeholders in terms of what the 2017 election entailed. So if you look at the technology that we actually deployed, it was embedded in law. It had never been done anywhere in the world. But we said, this is what we're going to do for us. But no one understood the implication of that. So when we went to execute that and got to this situation whereby we must have secure servers, secure systems that are hard to compromise, there are certain things that we must all understand. If you're not an ICT person, you would imagine that opening the servers entails just opening a door of a room and getting in to access it. But there's certain protocols that have to be followed. And in our understanding, when the court said you got 48 hours to be able to comply, of course we went back to the office with the best intention to ensure that there's access. But every time we tried that, because of the protocols and the procedures that were to be followed to ensure that there's full access, by 3 p.m. to the deadline, we only had partial access. And by that time, the experts who had been appointed by the court said they only had 2 hours to go and write the report. So had we been granted more time,
but you never
in fact 6 hours.
You never sought
Let me
for
finish
more time.
this. Let me finish this. Had we been given more time, and I can tell you, even the people who are there, both parties, the agents of both parties, the ICT agents from both parties, knew that access had been availed. The only limitation that they had was the time to be able to respond or to prepare the report to the court.
So let me then put this to you, because perception is important and it's big. And for many Kenyans, they don't know the nitty-gritties of what really happened. What they know is that the lawyers stood in court representing IEBC and made it sound that it's an issue of these things out of the country. Some people are asleep. The time difference is what we were told. What you're saying now is that, yes, it was open, but maybe with just 2 hours to go. What perhaps then the lawyer should have come and told the court is we need more time. But IEBC at no time asked for an extension to be able to do this, so that to say, even if it's after this, we'll still open, so that to date Kenyans know whatever happened in those servers, which is what NASA was able to run with, is unknown, is unclear, and IEBC is trying to do everything it can to make sure it doesn't come to light.
I mean, that is how it was interpreted.
And you agree that was a perception?
I mean, that was created. But I can assure you, the issues of the servers in terms of access, from a technical point of view, we did what was technically possible to be able to achieve what we were able to achieve.
Why didn't you ask for more time?
That was always our intention, but that perhaps you go back to court and ask for more time. But you see also the registrar and the experts had made up their mind that they're going to prepare the final report. So perhaps, had we asked for more time, maybe the court could have granted us more time, but we never asked for that particular time.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but that does not mean at all that IEBC went out to be able to sabotage its own process, that people had staked out their lives to ensure that we have a good election.
Yeah, but you saw that then many people just thought IEBC is hiding something. You see where those who feel and think that we are coming from. Yeah. All right, then there's the question around, again, which we saw play out in court, the standardization of the forms. We saw the judges taking the lawyers to task around that. And as the CEO of the Secretariat, when the commission chose to go with Al Ghurair, one of the key things was that it was giving very tight security measures were being put in place to ensure that the vote is protected, that you're able to tell fake from real. But when then we started seeing these discrepancies being shown in court and being proven, again, to further dig deep into this is a sham election.
No, I mean, it's all about perception and also the propaganda that was that played out during the particular time. No one, when we got Al Ghurair on board, the standardization was actually an administrative intervention by the IEBC itself to ensure that we had standard forms to be used in the election.
Correct.
And we gave those specifications to Al Ghurair, and I can say without contradiction, fear of contradiction, that that was delivered. It is really at the execution stage that some of our offices face challenges. And if you compare the percentage, the success rate in terms of the percentage of how the forms were received, we're talking about a very small number of forms that were controversial. And if you follow up on the reason of the forms that were not standardized, you wouldn't establish that there was deliberate effort to ensure that the forms were messed up. It is just the capacity issue. Is that these things were happening at the polling station.
But so that's the thing, because on one hand, one would argue, yes, maybe there's 1, 2, 3 legitimate cases of issues not, but also how do you, in that instance, rule out interference or foul play? Or even officers who have been compromised?
You must be able to look at the evidence that has been presented. Mm-hmm. If the issue or the discrepancies are not systematic, for sure there's no reason for you to push an agenda and say there's compromise. You have to look at the evidence in totality and establish whether there is any systematic discrepancy that can lead to a deliberate effort of somebody trying to play the system. But that was not the case. Mm-hmm. And by the way, there are certain forms that I saw in the registrar's report where they listed that, certain forms in particular constituencies did not have certain features. But when we pull out those forms and we looked at them, both in the bound copies that we took to the court and the ones that we had posted on the website, we found that it was not true. There's certain information that was presented to court, which from where we sit, mm-hmm. needed to be interrogated further. What was the basis?
And yet all teams were present as the registrar was overseeing that exercise and was supposed to note down whatever objections they may have. So are you saying in that moment IEBC did not get their word in?
You see, what happened is that if you go back to what happened at the Milimani, for example, mm-hmm. what was the order of verifying those particular forms? If you look at the court order, it was much more about access being allowed to the representative of the two political parties. IEBC was more or less of an observer. And given the order in which the forms were being verified, mm-hmm. if you ask officers who participated in that particular exercise,
right.
everyone admits that it could have been much better than what actually transpired. Mm-hmm. Because if somebody shouted in the room and said, okay, I got this from Manzoni, it does not have a barcode, then somebody is registering, Manzoni does not have a barcode. You see, it had to be looked into and be confirmed by IEBC. But IEBC had very limited authority at that particular time. So that report itself, mm-hmm. if you ask us, it had got discrepancies which not present the full picture of actually
Yet we
the state
do not
of
see
things.
those presented in court. But bottom line is, the Supreme Court found there were illegalities, irregularities in that election. So do you still oppose and disagree with their finding?
You got to go back and analyze that decision. When the court said there were illegalities or irregularities, what did they mean? What was actually, what is it that the court was talking about? I've heard many people talk about or messing up with the numbers, but if you look at the thematic area, the court highlighted as irregularities and illegalities, you'll be surprised. When the court talks about illegalities, mm-hmm. they talk about electoral offenses committed by the party that the president ran on, that is Jubilee. It was never about the commission, that section. But when it comes to irregularities, the emphasis is on the form of the form, if I can phrase it that way. Mm-hmm. How did the forms appear? And what they were measuring on was the issues to do with the discrepancies that we've just talked about. You do not have barcodes in some of the forms, or there's no signatures by presiding officers or returning officers.
Which are crucial because that's what IEBC had promised would happen, and then there were instances that was...
Yeah, and which I've said, there's certain things that happened, okay. but there was no deliberate effort by officers to play or sabotage the electoral process. There's no pattern in that.
That takes me to, following the nullification, the statements coming from you and the chair different. You vouched for your team, you congratulated them, saying they did a good job. However, the chairman of the commission said that investigations would go into, in fact, perhaps changes at the secretariat, which had not seen changes at the time since we had seen the new commissioners come in. Even now, you're still vouching for your team. So one wonders, after such an event, such a ruling and judgment is delivered, how do you know that everyone, how do you vouch for everybody?
I mean, Sophia, elections is not just, it's not a small matter. And every time we explain election management, perhaps the only other person who understands election management is a fellow election manager in another country. There's no comparison in this country. You mobilizing 360,000 officials across the country, and majority of them are actually officers at the polling stations. Your brothers and sisters somewhere up country, you have no much control about them. And you're always hoping that you've trained them enough and they'll be able to do their duty. Then it comes, the work they've done is submitted to a mid-level officer, then to another level, then finally the National Tallying Center. Yeah. This is a complex system. And it's not something, if we're able to pull it off in a manner in which we did, you cannot underestimate that particular effort. And I can tell you, a significant number of IEBC officials take out their lives for the sake of this country.
As a leader, do you also not want to look back to the team, as you had the chair calling for investigations, to say, let's also root out the elements that may be rogue within the team, as opposed to say everyone is good?
Let me explain further.
If nothing changes, why would we expect that now the next election will be a good one? It's a legitimate question.
It's a legitimate question, but let me explain, because you're cutting me. The chair took the position that he took at the time. I took a position that I took internally. This is what he said in public, but this is what he also said internally. Because as a leader, you must always be able to distinguish. The fact that he had to rely on the same officials to run elections, he had to lead the team. And you don't lead the team by now saying, I'm going to descend on you, to discipline you. And what happened also, to just clarify that,
so
after that...
It's about accountability.
Let me explain. After that, what happened is that the commission put in place a mechanism of trying to understand where those discrepancies arose and undertook disciplinary measures where they thought there was failure by the officials to take responsibility on matters that they ought to have ensured that there was matters that they ought to have ensured that the right things were being done. So there were disciplinary measures that were undertaken in some cases. We have officials who were demoted. We have officials who are not allowed to participate in the subsequent election in terms of being returning officers or not, given what had transpired.
So a lot was witnessed between the 8th of August and the repeat presidential election. More so at the commission level, and especially the relationship between you and the chairman, from leaked memos to almost like a line down the middle in as far as the commissioners and this camp and the other. And that only worried the country further, from an nullification now to a team that cannot appear to see eye to eye, and there's a repeat election, that's been prepared. What was going on in that commission?
I must admit that we had our own governance challenges at the time, and some of which, of course, I would say embedded in the manner in which we changed the commission too late in the day. That we got a lot of things of learning from one another to ensure that we were able to work together as a team. There was not much time to actually do that. So I believe that because of that limited time to be able to bond and to be able to work together as a team, contributed a lot in some of the disagreements that we saw. But now that we are where we are, we had elections in 2017, they're over. We still have to go back and ask ourselves, how can we do it better? How can we establish a proper institutional framework that embeds trust, not just within the commission, but in the entire political system as far as election management is concerned. I would say most of those differences, if you ask me, they're more structural. They emanate from the structural failure of the design that we already have in terms of the institution, the relationship between the secretariat and the commission, or what the commission.
So was it a power struggle between the secretariat, you, the CEO, Secretariat and the Commission headed
No,
by the chair?
I wouldn't say that. You should not narrow it down to the difference between the CEO and the chair. You have to look at the entire institution. We only represent the different structures. The chair represents the Commission. I represent the Secretariat. And if you look at the manner in which the IEBC is, obviously, you're going to have those tensions. So there's need for more clarity. So? There's need for more clarity in the manner in which roles are distributed across the two bodies. There were efforts to ensure that commissions only focus on strategy, policy, and oversight. Then the Secretariat will be able to carry out the day-to-day operations of the commission. And if you now have, for example, a full-time commission in the office, and you're only giving them a responsibility that is very minor in terms of strategy, oversight, and policy, you will likely going to see that sometimes in the manner of day-to-day interactions, there's an overlap, conflict, and that creates conflict.
But wouldn't you say at that time also politics almost took hostage the commission, in as far as on one side you had NASA saying you must go, you could not continue to be in office, there were protests around the same. Then on the other side you had the deputy president, I beg your pardon, at one point saying that he was aware of the chairman of the commission having night meetings with political players, so that both sides suspicious of each other within the commission, and all these players saying these things, looking as if some were supporting this camp, and the country is watching and seeing all of this and saying these people, politics has infiltrated the commission.
No, I mean, if you look at the role of the commission under the Constitution, you'll always become a target at a given point in time. A lot of things will be said about the institution, the individuals who are there, partly because we control access to political power. I mean, if you look at it, we control access to political power. And given that situation...
Is it control? I thought the control is with the people. You facilitate the process of the people controlling.
I mean, what I meant is a simple way of presenting.
Because controlling then means you decide.
But that's not what I mean. What I mean is that we more or less regulate, actually, if you have to be more, you regulate access to power by ensuring that we have proper elections. And because of that responsibility, there's a lot of tension that is likely to emanate in the political sphere, being a democracy. And people say all manner of things. They will try to want to have control over the nation as it is under the Constitution. They say you have to be able to stand firm. You have to be able to work independently, in spite of all the challenges surrounding so my take is that we got to do much more to safeguard the independence of the independence of the institution.
Would you know that those 4 agendas will change the lives of our people?